Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting here in Mount Beauty, M5, 27th of May 2025. Before we go any further, I'd just like to ask or let people know that Paul Ingram will be doing some filming for the 7:30 report. And I guess Paul wanted people to know that that was happening so that you're comfortable. Yep. And all councillors? Yep. Wonderful. So without further ado, I will move on to item 1 and ask the CEO, Mr. Will Jeremy, to read the statement.
All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however audio from the entire room is captured. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is to hold us more accountable and to improve transparency of council's decision-making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Could I ask all to stand for acknowledgement of traditional custodians and recognition of all people? Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land on which we were on today. Council also acknowledges all of the traditional owners of the wider lands known as the Alpine Shire. We also acknowledge the many people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and who strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Thank you. Item 3 is...
Do you want to introduce back?
Oh, yeah. Just before I move on, I did neglect to introduce Rebecca Moy, who is our Manager of Regulatory Services and is part of, should be an important part of our discussion later on, potentially. Thank you for coming. So item 3 is confirmation of minutes for the Ordinary Council meeting of 29th of April 2025. The recommendation is that the minutes as circulated be confirmed. Do I have a mover or a seconder from there? Thank you. A mover, Councillor Anderson. Seconder, Councillor Townsend. Any comments or discussion? No? Put that one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 4 is apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Peter Smith, who is still recovering from some major surgery, and he is absolutely can't wait to get back, busting to get back into his role. So hopefully next month. Item 5 is obituaries and congratulations, and I will start on my left with Councillor Townsend.
Nothing from me, thanks.
Yes, I would like to congratulate the Bright Autumn Festival and the Fiera Mittelford Italian Festival, including all the volunteer and Alpine Shire Committee Group for delivering once again amazing events and showcase our beautiful region to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Graham.
Nothing here. No.
Councillor Byrne.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes, I'd just like to congratulate the Myrtleford Lawn Tennis Club on being the winners of the Victorian Community Tennis Awards for Most Outstanding Tournament for their Easter tournament, coming on top of other clubs such as Ryan Mornington, which I thought was a really good effort. So just well done to them.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I'd like to congratulate the Brighton District Chamber of Commerce for producing their retail map. And so when people get out of their cars and go wandering around in Bright, they can work out where to go to buy what they want to buy. And it's a great initiative, and I think it might be taken up by some other organisations or other chambers of commerce across not just our shire but other shires. Can't wait to use it. Next item is declarations by councillors of conflict of interest. So do any councillors have a conflict of interest on anything on the agenda tonight that they know of? No. Perfect. Next item is public questions, and we have a few public questions on notice tonight which we will address now, and any questions that are about the battery energy storage system we will hold until the beginning of that item and then address them as we did last time as amalgamated. So we'll start with our public questions, and I am afraid I haven't got them up. Sorry about that. Do you have one there?
I don't have a paper copy. No, I don't have
No, okay. So while I'm finding that, I'll just outline, so public question time is about people asking us questions, but they must be respectful. They mustn't deal with the subject matter already answered. So there's quite a lot of stuff in our governance rules that we put into our agenda that talks about what's an appropriate question. Tonight we are accepting some questions that are not on the agenda because they've been asked a few times, because we think they do fit in. And here we go. It's coming, sorry. Okay, so the first question has been submitted by Mr. Frank Green, and it is about a cat curfew. Mr. Green would like to know if the cat curfew issue will be tabled with the new councillors, as he thinks there should be a cat curfew because he sees numerous dead birds and many cats out. And I would seek a response from Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cats are currently required to be maintained within their owner's property or securely confined at all times. This is under the Domestic Animals Management Act of 1994. So that is a current requirement legislatively for the management of cats. Cats are not allowed to be at large outside of their owner's property or not securely confined. If a cat is found to be outside of their owner's property, then there's a penalty liable for that provision. If a neighbour or a resident feels that a wandering cat is causing problems, there are a few things that they can do currently under the current rules that we have in place. You can borrow a cat cage from council at no cost, and if a cat is caught within the cat cage, our local laws officers will attend the site during business hours at no cost again to retrieve the cat. So there is quite a lot that can be done now under the current legislation to manage wandering cats. The other thing we'll do, though, is having a look at this information on our website, we'll do a review of the information that we're providing for the community at the moment to assist both cat owners and neighbours and residents to understand the requirements of cat ownership, but also to understand what you might be able to do as a neighbour if you have an issue with a wandering cat, to make it clearer for people.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Question 2 is from Sharon and John McAvoy, and it is about the new Emergency Services Volunteer Fund. Given that there is much discussion happening within the Municipal Association of Victoria about the new emergency services levy that shires across the state will be required to add to rates notices on behalf of the state government from the 1st July 2025, and that some shires have already stated they will not collect this new levy tax, what position will the Alpine Shire take on this? And the second part of the question is, what are the consequences for individual landholders, be they residential, commercial or agricultural, and for the Alpine Shire, if ratepayers refuse to pay this additional component on their rates? And again, I will ask Ms. Cook to address those questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a really difficult situation and a really difficult, fast-moving situation as well. So there's been a lot of change in this situation over the last few weeks. We believe that the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund is an unfair funding model that will significantly increase payment burdens on families, businesses and the farming community. However, as it currently stands, we are legislatively obligated to collect the levy, no matter how reluctant we are to do so. We are continuing to explore what options we have in this space, though, as I said, this is an evolving situation. Council also does not have mechanisms in place to manage the collection of this levy separately to the rates collection. This means that if a ratepayer pays less than the total rates and the levy combined, we must legally proportionally allocate the money collected across both the levy and the rates. This means that the full amount of the rates notice would not be paid. If the full amount of the rates notice continues to be unpaid, then the debt was referred for debt collection, which incurs additional costs and legislative penalty interest charges on top of that. It's important to note, though, that we do support a large range of ratepayers through our financial hardship policies, and if any ratepayer is having difficulty paying their rates or this levy, we really would encourage them to contact Council to have a discussion with us about what options might be available going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. I'm actually going to jump to question 4 and then go back to 3 because it is also about the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund. And it's from Jennifer Horan. Question is, given that some Alpine Shire ratepayers, such as CFA members, will be able to claim a rebate or a partial rebate on the new Emergency Services levy tax, can you please confirm that when this levy is to be added to rates notices from the 1st of July 2025, it will be listed as a separate item and not just included in general property charges? That's question 1. Question 2 is, what is the approximate amount of money that will disappear from the Alpine Shire local economy by the imposition of the increase in the Emergency Services levy? Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the ESVF will be a separate line item in the rates notice, so you will be able to see what amount of the rates notice is related to your property rates and what amount is being related to the ESVF. That will be separate. And we've undertaken some indicative calculations, and they're not final, but it's to the best of our ability with the information we have at the moment. And we believe that an additional approximate $2 million will be collected annually from the Alpine Shire alone from this charge.
Thank you. Final question for this part of the agenda is from Kate Farrell, and she is requesting that the Alpine Shire please consider dropping the speed limit along Centenary Avenue, Wandillagong, from 60 kilometres to 50 kilometres, and also along the main road from the Wandillagong pub from 80 kilometres to 60 kilometres. And I will pass the question to Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Kate, for your question. The request to reduce the speed limit on Centenary Avenue from 60 to 50 kilometres was recently raised at the quarterly Transport Liaison Committee meeting. The Transport Liaison Committee consists of council officers, Vic Roads and Vic Pol, and normally the emergency services also attend that meeting where matters like this relating to road safety are raised. Advisory signage will be installed shortly as an interim measure while we work through that speed reduction request. The second one regarding the stretch from Horses Creek, or from the pub from Horses Creek through to Nightingales being reduced from 80 to 60 is a new request. The team will be investigating and the site, looking at what the circumstances are, and based on their findings, we will then consider installing advisory signage in the short term while we work through the normal process with Vic Roads or the Department of Transport, because ultimately they will have to do the final approval.
Thank you, Mr. Rees. The remaining questions are about the battery energy storage system, so we will address them very shortly because that's the next item on the agenda, but I'm just going to step through the other items that have nothing to be said about them, which is we're moving on to presentation of reports by officers and going to 8.1, which is reports from the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Jeremy, and there are none.
None.
So then we move on to reports from our Director of Corporate and Community, Ms. Cook, 8.2, and the first item is 8.2.1. And are you going to take the questions, or do you want me to read them?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have received we have summarised into 2 questions from the community about this project, and I'll read out the summary of that question and our response. So the first question, what policies might Council put in place to send a clear message to renewable energy developers that project support will only be given when appropriate siting and meaningful consultation with Council and community is undertaken? So as you are no doubt aware, Council is not the responsible authority in determining where renewable facilities are located or approved. Any policies which are adopted into the planning scheme require sign-off by the Minister for Planning. The Minister would not support policies being adopted into our planning scheme which are contrary to the policy direction of state government. The second summary of question I have is how might Council strengthen and more clearly define the validity and expectations of the significant landscape overlay? Does Council recognise the importance of this issue and intend to address it as a matter of urgency? Significant landscapes are important for Council. The Alpine Shire Planning Scheme Review of 2023 found that significant landscapes in Alpine Shire are not adequately documented or protected by the planning scheme. It made a series of recommendations which include commencing a comprehensive assessment of the significant landscapes and the vegetation and putting planning controls in place to protect them, reviewing the existing schedules to the significant landscape overlay to strengthen the statement of significance and objectives and populate the schedules with policy to more effectively guide decision making, and seek Victorian Government support to fund or lead the review of significant landscapes and vegetation. Acting on this recommendation, Council has written to the Minister seeking their support to undertake this work to strengthen our provisions, and we are awaiting a response from the Victorian Government.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Would you now proceed in presenting item 8.2.1?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to item 8.2.1 being PA24033346 Battery Energy Storage System, or BESS, being a utility installation. This report is presented to Council to provide information to form a position on whether to formally object or make a submission of support to an application for the use and development of the land for a utility energy installation, or BESS. The removal of native vegetation, the development of signage and ancillary buildings and works at the land known as 1452 and 1402 Yakandanda Dedarang Road, Dedarang. It is Officer's recommendation that Council endorses the lodgement of a formal submission to the Minister for Planning objecting to planning application PA24033346 for the use and development of the utility installation as is contained within the report in front of you. The grounds for this recommendation for an objection is due to insufficient information being provided with the application to make a conformed and complete assessment as to the potential impact the proposed use and development may have on the visual landscape and the natural environment. It is also believed that the development will cause a detrimental visual intrusion on the significant Kiewa Valley landscape as a consequence of its scale and siting, with further detail within the recommendation, and that the proposal fails to provide justification for the siting of the development proximate to the bushfire management overlay, or to articulate how bushfire risk will be mitigated and managed both internally to and externally to the site, which is contrary to our clauses in our Alpine Planning Scheme with regard to bushfire management. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Now open the floor to councillors. There's a recommendation in front of us. Okay, we have the recommendation moved by Councillor Byrne. Seconder? Seconded by Councillor Tanzin. Councillor Byrne.
I support the motion to object to the... Let me turn this on, sorry.
Yeah.
I support the motion to object to the proposed battery energy storage system developed by Trina Solar at the Dedarang Transfer Terminal Station. While I do support the transition to renewable energy, and this particular proposal raises substantial concerns regarding public safety, environmental impact, land use compatibility and community consultation. The BESS facility is an industrial-scale installation being placed within a rural, agricultural and residential area. The character of Dedarang and the surrounding Kiewa Valley is defined by farming, open landscapes and a close-knit community. Introducing a large, high-voltage energy storage system into this environment is incompatible with the area's established uses and values. The visual and acoustic impacts alone will significantly degrade local amenity. Safety concerns are particularly pressing. Lithium-ion battery systems such as those proposed are known to carry a risk of thermal runaway, toxic gas emissions and fire hazards, risks that are magnified when placed near residential properties and critical farming infrastructure. Global incidents involving BESS fires and explosions, some requiring full evacuations, demonstrate that no system is completely fail-safe. The application lacks an independent expert analysis on fire mitigation strategies and does not outline clear emergency response plans in case of a battery failure. This is unacceptable in an area with limited emergency service coverage and challenging road access. Environmental concerns are also remain insufficiently addressed. The proposal does not provide clear safeguards against groundwater or soil contamination in the event of chemical leakage. Given the site's proximity to agricultural land and sensitive ecosystems, even a minor spill could cause serious long-term harm to local biodiversity and farming operations. Furthermore, the level of community engagement has been wholly inadequate. Residents were not properly informed during the early stages of the proposal, and many only learned of the application when it was well advanced. A project of this magnitude should be subject to transparent, inclusive consultation and must genuinely consider and respond to local concerns. There are also broader planning and social consideration. The proposed use is industrial in nature and belongs in a location that is properly zoned for such infrastructure, ideally within or adjacent to existing industrial precincts where such developments are appropriate and expected. The placement of a BESS in a rural township without suitable infrastructure or zoning precedent undermines sound planning principles and sets a dangerous precedent for future energy projects in sensitive areas. In conclusion, while I support renewable energy and energy storage as a part of Australia's transition to a cleaner grid, it must not come at the cost of rural communities, local safety and environmental integrity. I strongly urge the relevant planning authority to reject this application and require Trina Solar to identify a more appropriate site that meets safety, environmental and community standards.
Councillor Tansen.
Oh, I don't think I have much to add on top of that. That was very well summarised. But I also support the motion to object. And once again, I'm not against renewables, but I am against the lack of planning. It does not seem like sensible development. And I think that just more planning and looking into better places is the key for this.
Councillor Ronco.
I would like to thank Alpine Shire CEO and Directors team to facilitate Alpine Shire Councillor engagement with the community regarding this permit application. This month, we have been able to attend meetings in Dedurang, Mount Beauty and Bright. We have met with 19 groups of residents. We have been able to gain a better understanding of the weight of this application as on Alpine Shire residents. Every meeting with a resident was conducted with courtesy, understanding and without any conflict. Resulting from this engagement, we have identified the following concerns to our community: bushfire risk management, smoke plume impact on resident local fauna and flora, underwater pollution risk management, noise impact on resident and local fauna, impact on the landscape, local road management, insufficient detail in proponent documentation, insufficient community communication and consultation, impact on property value and insurance, economic impact, the management of community benefits, and the management of site rehabilitation at the end of its life. Going forward, if this motion is supported, I would like to foreshadow a second motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For those of you who don't know me, I live off-grid, so I've been using batteries and solar power for the last 18 years. We've met with many of you, and we've received many more emails and letters. And I'd like to just summarise what you have told us. Most of you have told us you're actually in favour of renewables, but not in favour of this BESS, for the following reasons. A fire risk to or from the batteries, visual amenity, risk to agritourism, incompatibility to significant landscape overlay. The photo montages fail to show the site cut. Impact on property values, impact on insurance premiums, inadequate consultation by the proponents, the local CLFA ill-equipped for a chemical fire of this nature, being built over the 68 fire break, toxic chemicals released into the air and waterways affecting people, nature and the environment, the noise, the cyber security risk, loss of agricultural land and infrastructure damage to the roads, particularly during the construction. I had a feel that 90% of the people that spoke to us were against and maybe 10% for. So there was only a small handful of people who supported this proposal. We've been elected to represent you, the ratepayers and the residents, so I therefore have to vote against this proposal.
Councillor Anderson.
First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge Madam Mayor Nicholas' leadership on the issue with this Trina BESS. I know previously in the last meeting there was pretty heated discussions and some, I think, got pretty ugly, but I think she still stood up and decided that she wanted to talk to everyone and make sure that everyone gets heard, and she was front and centre of that, so I just want to thank her for that first of all. I also want to acknowledge that there were people who support the BESS, and there's people within this community and right throughout the Shire, so I just want to say that first of all. I'd like to say that, and that's all, thanks, that'll do. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Thank you all councillors. As for last time, the Mayor doesn't often talk about a matter, but again, I think this is really important. And regardless of the 10%, 90% suggestion from Councillor Graham, I'm not going to even try and debate here, there are plenty of people who I'm going to speak for, who have come to me to speak for the BESS, and they feel unable to speak openly about it, mostly because they are involved in the Dedarang community and want to stay involved in the Dedarang community rather than being ostracised. So there is support for this BESS within the Dedarang and surrounding community. There is also policy support for the development of renewable energy facilities, as long as the siting and design minimises the impact. I'm just going to paraphrase a whole lot of stuff I've got written here, so excuse me while I think it through. The proposed location of the installation is in an area which is elevated in the significant landscape overlay. It's probably, for me, the hardest thing to contemplate, and it's certainly something that was being raised by many people in the community. We've just heard that the significant landscape overlays aren't strong enough and that they need to be strengthened. Having heard that and having an understanding of what an overlay is intended to do, it's not actually intended to stop things from happening. It's intended to make sure that when things do happen, or if things do happen, they're done so that there's minimal impact. So I think, I'll keep going. The best siting is high, as I've mentioned. There was apparently, according to the Trina people, a balance between noise and where it would travel and how loud it would be in various places where they were monitoring, and that sighting. So they think they've chosen the best site in terms of that balance of what you'll see and what you will hear, or not hear, as the case may be. In terms of fire, so a 20-metre fire break around the whole set of batteries. It's a pretty big fire break. And we have also heard from the CFA, and not the local people, and I get the concern about being on the team that would be potentially asked to fight the fire. But we have heard from the risk manager from the CFA that there's ways and means to get the smoke plume down, that the smoke plume isn't, yes, there's toxic chemicals in it, but there's toxic chemicals in house fires as well. So not having a BESS because there's toxic chemicals is like saying we can't build any more houses because there's toxic chemicals when they burn. So it was completely different. Exactly, Moss Landing was completely different. Was completely different. It was completely different battery chemistry for a start. Anyway, so what my final point is that all of the things that are of concern to the community, and I get it, don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't understand your concern, that those things can be managed through the detailed planning of the facility that happens after a permit is issued, if a permit's issued. And they can all be managed with conditions. So thank you very much for listening to me, because as I said, there's quite a number of people in the community who feel that they haven't been able to say what they think, and this is some of the things that they've come to us with. So, councillors, we will now take this one to the vote. All those in favour of the motion as moved. Thank you. All those against? Thank you. And Councillor Ronco foreshadowed a second motion. Councillor Ronco.
Yep, the foreshadow second motion is that Council requests that should the Minister for Planning approve the development, that specific conditions are included on any planning permit issue, that these conditions relate to bushfire risk, environmental management, noise, stormwater management, landscaping, including earthworks, complaint management, external materials, lighting, and decommissioning.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Is that going up on the screen? Yep. So we have a second motion put forward by Councillor Ronco that in a nutshell it's what we discussed with our community members when we went around and met with them, and it was fantastic to meet with so many people, by the way, that should the Minister go ahead, and as you all know it's not our decision anyway, we'd like to be sure that these things are properly managed in the conditions. So do we have a seconder for that motion? No? Councillor Tanzan, thank you. Councillor Ronco, would you like to talk further to the motion?
Yeah, all the details of this motion will be published on the Council website as with all the details, and everyone could have a read of all the specifications that we would like to bring if the permit's going ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tanzan.
I don't really have too much to add, but it is, I'd just like to reassure everyone that this is just making sure the community can be as safe as possible if this does go ahead. It's not us saying we're for or against it, it's just an extra reassurance to save ourselves if it does go ahead.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to make a comment? No? Okay, I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? There you go. Thank you. See, we don't always agree. So that brings the best matter to a close for the evening. Would people like to leave, or whether they like to stay for the rest of the council meeting? Thank you very much for your polite and respectful attendance, by the way. Paul, let's talk some more about... Everybody, and for the record, I neglected to say that both of those motions were carried. 4-2, both of them. Okay, I just heard the door shut. Thank you again, everybody who's here and staying with us. We're now on to item 8.2.2, Quarterly Performance Report of the Council Plan. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.2.2, the Quarterly Performance Report against the Council Plan. The Alpine Shire Council Plan from 2021 to 2025 was adopted by Council in October of 2021 and sets out Council's direction for the following 4 years. The Quarterly Performance Report is a second update on progress in this, which is the final year of the plan. Council is currently developing its new Council Plan for 2025 to 2029, with a draft released for public comment at the April Council meeting. The final version of this plan must be adopted by Council by 31st of October 2025. The recommendation is that Council receives and notes the Quarterly Performance Report for the period ending the 31st of March 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Yep, moved by Councillor Byrne. Seconder? Councillor Ronco. Councillor Byrne.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Councillor Ronco.
Just a few questions regarding it. I'd like to release this report. The first one, strategic driver number 1 for those who live and visit. So we developed the Council Plan 2025-2029. And I would like to know, did the community panel include some of the Alpine Shire Chamber of Commerce?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Yes, we had quite significant engagement with the community, and we also had a community engagement panel in place over the last months. And yes, the Bright Chamber of Commerce was a some of the members of the Bright Chamber of Commerce was on those panels. Thank you.
Thank you. After, on strategic driver number 2 for a thriving economy, on the events in a shire, 27 events were issued. Just I would like to know, do we have the economic impact in dollar of this event in the Alpine Shire?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. I don't have that on the top of my head. I'll have to take it on notice and report back to you next month.
Thank you. And finally, on the strategic driver number 4 for the enjoyment and opportunity of our lifestyle, do we have an update on the Murray to Mountain Pass Trail upgrade as we are now at the end of May 2025? And could we remind us and confirm that this update has been financed by a government grant via Tourism Northeast?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. So on your second question, yes, the entire Murray to Mountains project has been financed through Tourism Northeast. There's no council co-contribution. In terms of the schedule for completing the works, the Roberts Creek Bridge will be installed in the forthcoming week, and then the artwork itself will be installed in the last week of June, while the works at Urobin station are underway and will be completed in the next 2 weeks. So by the end of June, the entire project will be delivered in accordance with the agreement with Tourism Northeast.
Thank you, and that's it.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions or comments? I do have a question about my favourite thing, the tip shop. Do we have any feedback yet about how successful it's been?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't provide any detailed feedback on it. I'll provide an update next month.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, councillors. The motion to accept the performance report to the vote. All those in favour? Beautiful. Carried unanimously. Next item is 8.2.3, the Victorian Election Commission election report on the 2024 local government elections.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the presentation of the Victorian Electoral Commissioner's report on the 2024 Alpine Shire Council elections, and it is a requirement of the Local Government Electoral Regulations 2020 that we provide this report to you. The recommendation is that Council receives and notes the report, the election report for the Alpine Shire Council for the 2024 local government elections, which has been prepared by the Victorian Electoral Commission.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillors, so mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Tanzan. Councillor Anderson. No. Any further questions from councillors? I do have a question which is not exactly about the report. Do we at least have an approximate cost for an election to the Alpine Shire?
Yes, the indicative costs we provided with were in the vicinity of $200,000 for council to pay.
Thank you. So every 4 years, $200,000 to...
A proportion of that is for the running of for the election itself, the largest proportion, and then there is a proportion that is used to help with enforcement afterwards.
Thank you. Yep. Another question from Councillor Graham.
If I may, for those that choose not to vote for whatever reason, there is a fine attached to it. Who gets that money?
That's a very good question, Councillor. I would have to take that on notice.
I think we do. Yep.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the money that's received from the fines minus an administration fee is returned to the Alpine Shire, after a significant period of time for that recovery to occur.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions, comments? Yep.
On that, how many people didn't vote in the election of who could vote, who were enrolled to vote? Do we know?
Yeah.
I would have to take that on notice too. Thank you to Councillor Anderson.
Okay. We'll take this to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. The final item for Ms Cook is 8.2.4, Instruments of Appointment and Authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is to provide instruments of appointment and authorisation to new roles within our statutory planning department. It is a requirement that Council ensures that its officers are appropriately authorised under the relevant acts that Council administers. This report provides for the exercition of powers under the Planning and Environment Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Graham, seconded Councillor Anderson. Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Nothing to add, no.
Councillor Anderson. No. Councillor Ronco.
Just as last month, we already have an instrument of appointment and authorization, like this one. I would like just to know how it's going, who Alpine Shire Planning Team, how many officers do we have now in this department, and do we have a full team?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. I'm very excited to let you know that we are very close to having a full team for the first time in a significant period of time at Alpine Shire Council in our statutory planning team. We currently have 8 staff within the statutory planning department, but that's a mix of statutory planning officers, senior officers. We have a new coordinator and administrative staff. We have 2 vacancies remaining, which we'll be recruiting on soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, everybody, I've been really sick. Try not to stick all over everybody. Cough, I mean. Okay, any further questions? Take this to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Unanimously, thank you. We are now moving on to Mr. Alan Rees's items. And number 8.3.1 is a road management plan. Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report relates to the draft road management plan, version 6, which has been developed for consideration and approval for release to the community for consultation. By way of background, the Victorian Government introduced the Road Management Act in 2004, and this act provides the legislative framework for road management plans, including the purpose, contents and review of their requirements. The Road Management Plan sets out the broad management system and standards for the inspection, maintenance and repair of our public roads. Just for clarity, the Road Management Plan is a voluntary, I suppose, a plan that councils put together, and this is because it is deemed to be best practice for the effective management of our road network in accordance with the legislation. Council adopted its first road management plan in 2009 and then had some revisions in 2013, 17 and 21. So what's been presented to Council this evening for consideration is the most recent review. And just by way of summary, a few changes that I think are relevant to note is that the MAV, the Municipal Association of Victoria, have introduced a new template. And so what officers have done is to align the structure of our road management plan and the standards for inspection frequencies and repair frequencies or response times with the best practice recommendations of this new template. A summary of the changes. We have a number of road categories that have been updated to align with the requirements of the new template. We've reduced some inspection frequencies. We've also introduced curb and channel for the first time, which will add some additional cost implications for council, and this is a requirement under the new template. In some cases, the defect repair response times have been reduced, so we're looking to repair and improve our response times in accordance with the best practice recommendations. We'll be adding around about 40 kilometres of previously unclassified roads to the road management plan, and this is mainly to ensure that we get a level of service that's consistent across our network for all residents. And in terms of defect response times, we also have improved the definitions of those. There will be some financial implications by adding curb and channel and also the additional 40 kilometres of road. What officers have done is staged the impact of those over the coming period so that we have a practical and responsible approach to adding those additional kilometres. What this will also do is our grant funding from the state government is calculated based on the number of kilometres of road we have in our road network. And so we anticipate that by adding these additional kilometres, we'll see an increase in the funding that we receive from government. So the recommendation this evening is for councillors to consider endorsing this revised plan for public exhibition, and then once received, review those submissions from the community and come back to council in due course with a recommendation for adoption once all of that work has been done.
Thank you, Mr. Rees. Councillors. Moved by Councillor Ronco, seconded by Councillor Anderson. Councillor Ronco.
No, that's fine, all good.
Councillor Anderson. Anybody? Councillor Byrne.
During the review phase, there's a register of public roads which now lists all the new classifications of the Shire's roads, correct? Is that a publicly available document?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Yes, our road register, thank you for reminding me, is a publicly available document. It is on Council's website. It is a live document, so it gets periodically reviewed and updated as new bits of road get added. So it's there for the community to review.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Take this to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 8.3.2, adoption of the Alpine Shire Council Climate Action Plan 2025 to 2029. Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to the Alpine Shire Council Climate Action Plan 2025 to 2029 and presents a framework for the organisation to continue reducing its operational greenhouse gas emissions and to ensure its assets, operations and services are resilient to climate change impacts. Following an extensive period of review, research, best practice benchmarking and staff consultation, the Climate Action Plan includes a range of actions to be implemented across the organisation over the next 5 years. The Climate Action Plan has been developed to provide clear direction to Council to further reduce its corporate greenhouse gas emissions and build resilience to climate change over the next 4 years. Probably by way of just a bit of background and context, the previous Council Climate Action Plan was endorsed by Council in September 2021, and it provided a framework for us to start our journey towards net zero and focus primarily on scope 1 and 2 emissions. And it's really heartening to be able to share the results of the work that's been done and the impact that those initiatives have had, which has effectively reduced Council's corporate greenhouse gas emissions from over almost 2,400 tonnes to 610 tonnes of carbon equivalent. And I think this is something to be really proud of. However, the next phase of our journey is going to be more challenging as we've now picked all of the low-hanging fruit. And so, there will be a lot more, I suppose, careful work to be done to see what we can do and consider the cost implications to be able to continue our journey towards net zero. The recommendation is for Council to adopt the Climate Action Plan 2025 to 2029 this evening, and I hand it over to you for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Rees. Councillors, I move there in a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Councillor Anderson.
This is our second climate action plan, am I correct in saying that? Is that right?
Yep.
So it's probably worth noting too that some of the initiatives that have gone through have actually made sort of a cost benefit to the council, such as the solar and other things, is that right?
Yes, there are a range of things that we've done. Probably to just step through some of the major impacts, probably the biggest impact was Council joining a power purchase agreement with a range of other councils, which enabled us to secure our electricity costs from renewable sources only, and that's had the biggest impact. In addition to that, there have been some installations of solar on a range of council buildings, which has reduced council's electricity demand. And we have also looked at and invested in a number of electric vehicles to reduce our fossil fuel reliance. So there's been a range of impacts from those initiatives.
Sorry, just one other thing. Is our sort of comparative performance as a council to, say, other local councils, is there any sort of, do you have any idea on how our emissions reduction is to, say, Indigo Shire or Taiwan?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm afraid I'll have to take that on notice. I don't have the benchmarking at the top of my mind this evening.
No worries, thank you.
I can answer that question. The Indigo Shire Council has a net zero target of 2035, and we're already there.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Councillor Townsend.
So where would we be able to find information on the Climate Action Plan, and when can we expect to see those documents?
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. So the Climate Action Plan is appended to this report this evening and will be published on Council's website as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ronco.
Just a comment. I would like to congratulate previous councillor and all the Alpine Shire Council team to have reduced its corporate emission from the baseline of 2,384 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent per year to 610 tonnes through the implementation of the Climate Action Plan 2021-2024. Now focusing our attention on the Climate Action Plan 2025-2029, reducing the 610 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent per year toward a net zero target will require a more significant reduction effort and an important financial and resource implication. Aware of the restrained Alpine Shire Council budget with a deficit forecast of 1.3 million in the 2025-2026 Alpine Shire Council draft budget and probably ongoing in the following year, we will need to continue and reinforce our advocacy for government funding, opportunity or new action, as well as maintaining our already existing assets. We will need to ensure also the financial sustainability of this action toward the Climate Action Plan 2025-2029. And finally, we will need to continue our advocacy for a better climate action outcome for a resilient Alpine Shire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, any other councillors? Councillor Byrne.
It's outlined in the action plan that will measure and baseline our Scope 3 GHG emissions along our procurement processes and also through our lease facilities. I'm concerned how many of our current suppliers actually monitor their GHG emissions.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. So Scope 3 emissions is really about a longer-term program to look at, how does our supply chain respond to greenhouse gas emissions, how do they measure it, how do they monitor it. And so the plan, or the recommendations in the plan, are for us to start gathering some baseline information by engaging with our suppliers, understanding what they do. This is going to take probably a number of years. The whole industry is on a journey in this area, and we want to work collaboratively with our supply chain to be able to understand the full implications. And doing this baseline work gives us a sense of what does it look like currently, and then where are the opportunities, and how big are those opportunities down the track.
Is there any suggestion that we would focus more on the larger to medium businesses, or is it all businesses, including small business? So I'm talking about like the bloke who runs his own plumbing business. Is he expected to be able to realistically be able to calculate his Scope 3 GHG emissions?
So at this point in time, we'll go through a prioritised approach to look at where, segment our supply chain, understand who are the players that are most suitable to be able to collaborate with to start with, and obviously we'll start with the more mature businesses. And other organisations and councils are ahead of us in this regard in terms of Scope 3 emissions baselining, and so we'll look to them and see what processes and approaches they've taken, what's worked, what's not, and then adjust our approach to ensure that we take a very practical and pragmatic approach to understanding the full scope.
Thanks, Director Rees.
Councillor Graham, anything to no questions? This is another question without notice. I'm sorry, Mr. Rees. Years ago, I heard a speaker from KPMG, a management consultant, talking about how important gearing up for climate change and the effects of climate change on assets in particular may be for insurance costs. And I just wondered if we've A, done any work, B, are expecting some changes, or if that sort of effect is built into the ongoing thinking around the plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess our asset base and resilience to climate change is a broader issue, and it's not only dealt with in our climate action plan. So certainly part of our thinking is to look at how do we design for the future. And so some of the work that's outlined in the climate action plan will inform that. In addition to that, we're currently reviewing our asset management plans, and they are really the vehicle that then drive our investment program for future maintenance, renewal and upgrades of our assets. And climate action impacts and asset resilience will be addressed as part of our investment program going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Rees. It's great to hear that all the planning meshes and works together. Any further questions or comments from councillors? No, we'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Anyone going to abstain? If you abstain, we usually like to have a reason. You're abstaining? Yes. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. So, you taking a note of that? Councillor Burns abstaining from the vote?
Yeah, I don't need to take a note of
No.
that. It's just an outcome.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Unless we ask. The next item is item...
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, just to confirm that motion was carried?
The motion is carried, yes, sorry, there was 5 voting for it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry? No, 5, that's why I changed the words. Yeah. And abstain, and 1 abstaining. 8.3.3, Myrtleford landfill cap construction variations, Mr. Rees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to an unbudgeted contract variation for the Myrtleford landfill rehabilitation cap construction for cells 1 and 2. Just by way of context. A number of months ago, we recommended a contract be awarded for the construction of both cells 1 and 2 and requested approval for additional unbudgeted funds to be funded from our waste reserve. And the reason for this recommendation was that by combining the scope for these two cells, we would realise a saving to council of $89,000 and enable us to meet the EPA requirements for the rehabilitation of these cells. So in total, a contract was awarded for just over $2.2 million. What has happened subsequently is that we have struck some latent conditions. And just to walk you through what those are, in the first case, when we started our earthworks, we found that the level of compaction in the cells was not as originally anticipated. And what this has required is significant additional machine time from the contractor to be able to fill the air voids and compact the waste to bring it up to a level that can then be capped. This is not unusual, unfortunately, in landfill, particularly old landfill projects. They're complex. We find things that we could not have anticipated prior to commencing. In addition, we also had a bit of a traffic safety issue that emerged. The original safe traffic management plan was approved. However, once works commenced on site, we had some near misses with members of the public. And so it was deemed important to rectify that risk. And so some additional roadworks were constructed, and these will remain as an asset to the landfill or the transfer station after the project. The challenge we have this evening is that approval is being sought for council to retrospectively approve this unbudgeted spend of just over $300,000. And the reason for that is that when we uncovered these problems on site, in order to avoid standing the contractor down, council officers made a decision to keep the works going to avoid the stand down costs, which would have been more than the variation. Unfortunately, we don't have a mechanism in our current procurement policy that allows us to make that decision and keep works progressing. And so this evening we're requesting retrospective approval for these variations.
Thank you, Mr. Rees. Councillors. Moved by Councillor Ronco, seconded Councillor Graham. Councillor Ronco.
Just a little question here. Could we have what the financial and resource application of this variation?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. So these works are funded from Council's waste reserve. At this stage, due to these additional works for these two variations, there may be a chance of our general waste charge being increased. The team are busy working through that at this point in time. So once that work's done, it may inform a general waste charge increase.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Councillor Ronco stole my thunder, so no, nothing.
Anybody else? Councillor Byrne.
The traffic management plan, can you describe the conflict and why we needed a stronger plan?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. So at the Myrtleford transfer station, there are two gates, and the original traffic management was approved to be able to separate members of the public to continue to use the transfer station while works were underway. Unfortunately, and the signage and bunting that was put in place were thought to be adequate. However, we realized that not all members of the public understood what the traffic directions were that was required. And so we've put hard infrastructure in place now to ensure that there's no confusion about where the members of the public travel versus where the works are being undertaken.
Any further questions or Comments by councillors? No. Take that one to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. The next item is informal meetings of councillors. Open it. There you go. So we have our list of meetings, including the one-on-one sessions with community members that Councillor Ronco referred to, and others, to talk about BESS. Recommendation is that the summary be received. Councillors. Councillor Anderson, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's been really rewarding talking to people out in the community at these community pop-ups we've had, and also even with the BESS. It's good to hear back from people and get feedback on where we're at and what can be done to improve. And I'm just very thankful for those people who came and had a chat to me. Thank you.
Councillor Byrne? Anybody else? No? All those in favour? Unanimous. Carried. Presentation of reports by delegates. Now, there was a bit of banter about this. I will just start on my right with Councillor Anderson, and if you have a report.
No.
No. Councillor Byrne? Councillor Graham? That was one of the banterers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the Thursday, the 15th of May, I attended an online meeting of the Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance. Most of what was discussed was really procedural, so there's not really a lot to talk about, but I thought I might just give you a bit of a list of projects that are underway. And some of these activities include application to the Disaster Resilience Fund, Department of Transport for a shared advisor, in other words, someone to help out with the GMCA. Finalise the impact assessment by first person. Sorry, I can't remember what that was about. Additional panel members for the Goulburn Murray Solar Savers. And recent meetings have been held with DECA, Minister D'Ambrosia, Parliament Secretary, AusNet, the Energy Resilience Community Fund panel, which is through AusNet, Goulburn Murray Solar Savers, Victorian Greenhouse Alliance Joint Advocacy, and a visit, and Goulburn Murray Solar Savers again presented to the Mitchell Community Energy and Totally Renewable Beechworth. And that's essentially it until August.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Any? Councillor Ronco?
Yes, the Alpine Resilient Partnership meet on the Wednesday, 7th of May, 2025 at Mount Buffalo Chalet. Present were representatives from Alpine Shire Council, State Emergency Services, The Loop, Victoria Police, Alpine Health, Ambulance Victoria, DFFH, Belgravia, Mount Beauty Neighbour Centre, DECA, Mount Autumn, and AWH. Steve Bailey, the chair of the group, presented the result of the internal survey regarding future meeting. We also talk about the financial sustainability of the group with some explanation on end-to-end organization using their legal infrastructure. Vic Paul presented their report. We also received some update on the 72 hours program by Karen Van Nussen, with community rolling out in their own way. We receive an update on the Loop website, and every community group representative present their report. The meeting closed at 12:30 p.m. and the next Alpine Resilient Partnership is planned for July the 2nd at the Bright Pavilion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Townsend?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Okay. Lovely. Councillor Graham?
Set number 2 report. On Friday, the 16th of May, I went to Melbourne for the Municipal Association of Victoria's State Council, as you were unable to attend. It was very interesting. It was good to meet some really big movers and shakers, and 44 motions were put through on that day. 43 of them were adopted, one was lost. I'll speak to just one, and that's the one that interests most people anyway, and that's the Emergency Services Volunteers Fund. That went through the Parliament less than 24 hours before this meeting, so there was a lot of hasty rewriting of some of the motions, unfortunately. Essentially what was resolved was that the MAV would like to see the collection of the Emergency Services Volunteers Fund be collected directly by the State Government Revenue Office and not by councils. However, reading the legislature, it doesn't sound like that will happen, as Director Cook spoke to before. So if the councils are expected to collect this money, the councils would like to be properly compensated for the time, effort and equipment that is required to collect the money on behalf of the state government. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for representing the Alpine Shire Council at that very important State Council meeting. Much appreciated. And the next item is, oh, we've got three, that's right. See, that's what the banter was all about. Next item is Councillor Graham giving us another report.
Number 3. Yesterday, and forgive me, these aren't very good minutes as yet because the meeting was only yesterday, held in Wangaratta at the Wangaratta Organics Recycling Facility for the North East Local Government Waste and Recycling Forum. So there's, I think there's 9 councils and the Alpine Resorts Commission that are representative. As with most meetings, not everyone can attend. There was quite a discussion about the proposed purple bins, the glass recycling bins that are probably most likely coming. Some discussion about how councils are going to implement. Will everyone get a bin, or will there be a collection point where you can drop off? The legislation is a little unclear at the moment. The soft plastics pilot program, which is being run through Harve Waste, which the Alpine Shire is part of, seems to be travelling really well, but there's been no report in the last 3 or 4 months as to any update. Another item on the agenda was the textile recycling. There's a company in Melbourne called Recycle Clear that have approached some councils and they will provide a textile collection point, usually probably in the way of a skip at a transfer station, but it's for a fee, and most councils are being quoted somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000 per year. Benalla reported that they are looking at, in conjunction with the EPA, of a new or expanded land site for wastes. Whether that's going ahead or not, it is still up in the air. And nope, that's it until August.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Another really important networking committee.
That's it. Good.
No more? No more. Move on. Right.
Please enough.
Cheers. Item 11 is general business, and I'm going to start with Councillor Townsend on my left. No. Councillor Graham, no, you're done. No, I'm done. Councillor Byrne, general business. Councillor Anderson, I've got one thing. I just wanted to make note that it's Reconciliation Week this week. National Sorry Day was yesterday, and our libraries have a little display of kids' books in particular, and so, apparently I've only had some feedback. I haven't seen them myself, but well worth going and having a look and a bit of feel good for Reconciliation Week. So that's my general business, and I'm going to ask Mr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to recognise that today marks the end of our public exhibition of the draft budget for next year, the draft council plan, which incorporates the vision, and the municipal public health and wellbeing plan. So 4 weeks ago, council adopted these draft documents, and we've been through a pretty extensive period of engagement over the last 4 weeks. We've had pop-ups in Dedarang, Mount Beauty, Harrietville, Bright, Myrtleford. We've had online engagement. We've had the opportunity for people to comment through paper submissions, and I know there's been lots of conversations. So I'd like to thank people who've taken the time to put in their submissions, whether that's individually, whether it's groups or organisations, because I appreciate the effort it takes to go through these documents and pull together your thoughts. We've had a real diversity of opinion, which reflects the diversity of our region, so it's really interesting to see what commentaries come in. And together with the team in the office, we're really looking forward to supporting the councillors now as you consider carefully all the commentary that's come in and shape the final plan, supporting strong, sustainable and inclusive future for the Alpine Shire. So really looking forward to the next steps, and it's been a really interesting journey so far. So thanks very much. Final one from me. If you're keen to provide more input, we're now out looking for input on the rural direction strategy. So this is of particular interest to those people in our rural communities. So get your pens out again, grab a hold of the document. We've got some engagement sessions lined up over the coming weeks. Through till the 20th of June, the engagement finishes on this. It's another key document in Council's strategic planning suite of documents. So get a hold of that. Information on our website through Facebook, and we'll have some notices in the newspapers as well for people to come and get engaged in this process. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy, for talking about those very important plans and decisions that are coming up, and thanking our wonderful community for all their input. Our next item is motions for which notice has previously been given, and there are none. And then reception and reading of petitions, and we have 2. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you noted, we've received 2 petitions, and I'd like to put forward a recommendation that Council receives these 2 petitions. So I'll provide the details here. The first one relates to the redevelopment and rezoning of Mummery Road in Myrtleford, and the petition that Council notes and receives the petition containing 45 signatures objecting to the redevelopment and rezoning of the land at the end of Mummery Road in Myrtleford. And that in accordance with Council's governance rules, a report be prepared and presented at the next ordinary Council meeting. Would you like me to continue with the second one?
Yep.
Or you can, yep. Second petition relates to the expansion of the Caravan Park at the Myrtleford Recreation Reserve. And the recommendation that Council notes and receives the petition containing 43 signatures objecting to the expansion of the Caravan Park at the Myrtleford Recreation Reserve. And that in accordance with Council's governance rules, a report be prepared and presented to the next ordinary Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. And that actually caught me on the hop. We're not supposed to bulk up any items, so we will have to vote on 13.1, the first petition by itself, and then the second one. Move and second, yeah. So moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Graham. Any comment?
None from me.
No. So that's for the 13.1. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. And then I'll put 13.2 to the vote. Expansion of the Caravan Park at Myrtleford Recreation Reserve petition. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Graham. Anything to comment on? No. All those in favour? Forgot about that one. That is carried with all those against, no abstaining. A councillor abstaining in that one, so we've got 5-4. 5 towards it. Yeah, it's enough, that's right. Okay, the next item is documents for sealing. Let's wiggle down to that. So I'll have a recommendation that they are the following documents be signed and sealed. Do I have a mover and a seconder for those, please? Moved by Councillor Ronco, seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any questions or comments? No? All those in favour? It's unanimous. Confidential reports, and there are none. So I think we are going to closure of the meeting at 6:24 p.m.